I'm Jackie Lemire, member of the Foggy Bottom West End Village Program Committee. Welcome to another presentation in our Art Thursday series. Today, we are very fortunate to have Linnea Hegarty guide us on a virtual tour of the exciting new artworks and the restored permanent artwork in the transformed Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library. Linnea is the Director of Events, Exhibits, and Development at the DC Public Library. She brings to DC Public Library more than 17 years experience and leadership positions at nonprofit and political organizations. Prior to her current position, she served as the Executive Director of the DC Public Library Foundation, a nonprofit organization that provides programmatic resources to the DC Public Library to supplement local government funding. Enjoy your time with Linnea, and we hope that in the not too distant future, we all will be able to visit the art and the beautifully restored library in real time. Linnea, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jackie. Everybody, I'm so pleased to welcome you virtually to the new modernized MLK library. As you all may know, the library was fully renovated from the period of 2017 to 2020. We reopened to the public for what it is in September, and there are a lot of new features in the building that we'll go through as I'm showing you the artwork. We'll talk also about some of the key architectural features that have made this renovation, made the library so much more welcoming and much more of a use as a public library in our new modern sense of what a library is. Jonas, if you can go to the next slide. Thank you. This slide just shows you some of the new features we have, which we'll see. A new transparent entry. One of the biggest changes is at the front of the building, there was a lot of buff yellow brick, if you remember, and we've been able to take a lot of that yellow brick away and replace it with glass, which makes the building much more welcoming when you first come up across it. And we'll talk a little bit about the stairwells, which the new monumental staircases, which are a new wonderful feature that really draw people in and make people understand that there's more to see than just the first floor of the library when you come in. We also have a fab lab, which we're not going to visit today, a recording studio with the green screen, the ability to do a lot of sewing machines, a whole bunch of creative suite of computers. So there's a whole bunch of ways that you can sort of bring your dreams, your creative dreams to life here at the library. There will be a new cafe, which we'll talk about a little bit, and a new special collection space, which we'll see when we go up to the 4th floor. We've also renamed our special collections to be the People's Archive to more fully represent what we really hope it is to the community. And Jonas, you can go to the next slide. Just a few notes about the library before we begin our tour. As you all may know, it's a building that was designed by famed modernist architect Mies van der Rohe, and it was renovated. The renovation was headed by Meccanu, which is a Dutch architecture firm, and Martinez and Johnson was the original architecture firm in DC, the architect of record. Most importantly, the library has opened with much more public space than it used to have. We have almost 100,000 square feet of public space that we did not have before, which is really just a function of using the space much more efficiently and ensuring that the public is top of mind. As you all may know, Rich, who's our executive director, had an enormous office. It was like 2,000 square feet. It could have been an apartment in DC, and we've shrunk down those offices significantly to better reflect our office environment, which of course we're really grateful for now, since none of us are in our offices at all. And also importantly, we expect to get LEED Gold certification for this building, which, as you may imagine, in a building that's been renovated, that has these enormous windows, is really a feat. And I really give our design team a lot of credit for being able to do that. Now, Jonas, I think that's, we have a couple more slides. So I wanted to sort of preface the part about the art, showing you the art with a little bit of information about how we view art and exhibits in the library. It's a very important feature of what we do here. We really think that it is our role, it's a key role for us to bring art to the community, not just here at MLK, but across our 26 neighborhood libraries as well. It's really important to support local artists, bring local artists into the buildings and pay them to do the work. We also think it's very important to bring international and well-known artists to MLK so that to MLK and the system so that DC residents have access to that, because we know that there are many, many of our patrons at DCPL who would never walk into a museum, even though we have a lot of free museums here. There's lots of other barriers, and we see ourselves as a key to making art more accessible in the district. And as you can see here, there's a little bit more information about our art program. The other thing I'll say about the art here before we move on is, sorry, I'm a little bit out of breath already. Too bad we're gonna go up the stairs. Is we really try very hard to honor the communities, not just at MLK again, but wherever the libraries are. So we really think a lot about the neighborhoods where our libraries are and try to ensure that the art in those libraries is reflective of that community. That's really important. So I think before we move on, and I am going to show some art, I promise. Jonah, you can move to the next slide. We will not go out to the cafe garden, but on the 9th and sort of on the G Place and 9th Street side, sort of across from the Petco building, if you all are familiar with where the building is situated, we have this new beautiful garden and cafe, which is going to be a partnership with DC Central Kitchen. We're very thrilled to be working with them to have a cafe in the library. But we're just as excited that one of the key features of this cafe garden is going to be a bench that Martin Puryear, who is a famed artist, he was featured in the 2019 Venice Biennale, and he is from Washington, DC. Interestingly enough, he actually worked at the library when he was a child. He worked at the Woodridge, well, when he was a teen, I should say. He worked at the Woodridge Library, and he actually also worked at the library in the Carnegie Building, which is now the Apple Store, of course, for a short time. So he has offered to create this bench, which you can see here, that will serve as a key feature of the garden by the cafe on the 9th and G Place side. So we're really thrilled to be working with him. And hopefully that's a signal to you all and to the community of the approach that we're taking to art in the library. So I will move now. I've been in the stairwell and we'll talk a little bit about that in just a minute. I'm going to move right now to the vestibule. And this is where we're doing most of our services. I'm going to turn my camera around. So you'll see there's people, this is where we're serving most of our patrons. So I'm going to try to get out of their way as much as possible. But this is, as you first come into the building, on your left, on your right, the first thing you see is a picture of MLK that was taken, he's speaking at Cardozo High School. And then on this side, the opposite side, it's a little bit more difficult to see, but you can see this is a picture of modern day activists who are students at Cardozo High School. I don't know if you can see, there's a face there, there's a face there, there's a face up there, and they're holding up their fists. And some of them have Black Lives Matter t-shirts on. Now, this was really important to us to represent King's legacy, both his connection to DC, because when he was at Cardozo, he was speaking about urban renewal and Shaw, and to represent the modern day approach to some of those same issues that he cared most about. One of the most interesting things about this piece, if you zoom in, and I'm going to try to get where you can see it, these are all made of buttons. Many of these buttons on the King side were actually from our collection. I'm going to try to get where you can see some of them. Barry to the rescue, stop the KKK. And as I said, many of these buildings are in our collection. I love Howard University. I don't know if you can see that. And then on this side, the buttons are contemporary protest buttons that were very meticulously digitally recreated by the artist, who's Nikisha Durrett. She's a local artist here in DC. She's done several pieces for the library, some temporary exhibits that have actually been here at MLK. But for those of you who go to the West End Library frequently, she also did the piece that's in the children's area of the West End Library. So she's been a great partner with us, and we're very thrilled to have her work here at the MLK Library. So I'm going to go through the walls, through the doors of the vestibule, into the Great Hall, which for those of you who have been in the MLK Library in the last, little while, 40 years actually, it looks very much the same. This whole floor was historically protected. So a lot of the, so most of this did not change much at all. On that side, we have public access computers and co-working spaces, which is actually the same as it was before, although in the front corner on that side, we will have some temporary exhibit space. And actually there's a temporary exhibit of historical photographs featuring photographs of the block surrounding the library. That's really fascinating. For those of you who are familiar with this space, G Place, which is the alley behind the library, that used to be houses, which we have a beautiful picture of a tree-lined street that used to be G Place, a lot different than it is now. And then on this side, as I said, the cafe garden that I was referring to is back in that back corner. We will also have temporary exhibit space in this, the 9th and G corner. We currently actually have an installation happening there. That's a projection by the artist Robin Bell, who's made himself a real name for himself doing a lot of political projections all around town and actually all around the world. And he is doing a projection that is based on some of our historic photographs. That's going to be up, I believe, through June now. So please come by. Most importantly, though, in this space is the mural. This mural was created by the artist Don Miller in 1984. It was commissioned by the DC Public Library Foundation. And one of the most important things architecturally is we were able, for those of you who have visited the library, the one big change here is that this used to be more buff yellow brick underneath the mural. We've been able to take that out and replace it with this wood slats, which we'll talk about a little bit in a little bit, creating this informal seating area. And that has really put the focus where it should be, which is on this gorgeous mural that tells the story of Martin Luther King Jr.'s life from when he was born, which is on that far side, to his speech on the Mall, the I Have a Dream speech, and of course his death, and many other moments. And in fact, an interesting fact about the mural is when Don Miller created it, he used as some of the models current DC Public Library staff. So there are some faces that when this was unveiled in 1984, there were some familiar faces in the mural for those of for those people who worked at the library and for patrons of the library. So for the modernization of the library, this mural was restored, and I'm very pleased to say that we are so happy with it. It really has brought out the beautiful colors in the mural and has made it much more of what it was intended to be. So now I'm going to take you all up the stairs. I'm going to turn my camera around so you don't get quite so sick watching me walk up the stairs. As I mentioned before, the monumental staircase are a really, I have to go in here. The monumental staircase is a really important feature of the new library. It really welcomes people into the building. And most of all, it really creates a difference between the old and the new. So as you'll notice, I'll turn it around. As you'll notice, and I'll get up so you can see, and then down. So those are 3 circular skylights. It's a little bright today, so hard to tell up there. Maybe we'll tell when we get a little closer. And then it's surrounded by these wood slats, which you'll see really throughout the building. And that was really and it's all curved. And it's not regular. For those of you who know about Mies van der Rohe, you know that he's all of his work is steel, hard surfaces, tight lines, squares and rectangles. That's what he's about, and glass and metal. And so this stairwell, the elements of the building that are new, the architect was very careful to ensure that those had lots of curves and soft materials like wood to create a very distinct and different impression in these spaces so that you know this is new. And that was really important in the design. So now we're entering the second floor, and I'll go quickly over to the children's area, which is much larger than it used to be, which we're very pleased about. And although it is very large, it's separated into different spaces for different aged kids. So the furniture has been very carefully chosen so that this area is for the younger kids. That's the story time area over in the corner. And then as you go this way, it gets older. Now, as you can see, it's very beautiful, but it might not be that welcoming to children, which is something we've been really thinking a lot about. And so we're working with a local artist, Matthew Curry, and Neil Ashby, who have created these sweet monsters that are going to be throughout the space, welcoming people, welcoming children in. They'll be at heights that are appealing to children. I'll get a little bit closer so you can see. And they'll also be backed by and surrounded by local architectural and notable places in DC. So the idea is that children from all over the city can come here and see things in the art that remind them of their community and where they live, not just DC, but their neighborhood. The other thing I want to point out here is we're getting a lot of the furniture has been restored. I pulled away just a little bit of the plastic. I'm going to have to put it back because we've got to move this somewhere else. But I did want to show you, you know, this is not the most famous piece of probably furniture that we have. You all may know we have several Barcelona chairs, which are still being restored, but will be brought back to the library and put in the Great Hall. But we also have these, and there's a lot of furniture that that we have taken out and restored and we'll be bringing back. And then I want to welcome you to the teen space, which I'm so pleased to say we've renamed the Alma Thomas Teen Space. And we've been working with a group called the Friends of Alma Thomas, who have generously donated 13 works of Alma Thomas to the library, which granted, you see they're on, they're right now just on, mounted on these easels, but we will be hanging them. They will be in rotation here at the library on this floor, actually. And the reason that the teen space has been renamed after Alma Thomas, you all may know, Alma Thomas was born in Columbus, Georgia, but spent most of her life here. She lived at 15th and I think Q. Her house has a historic marker by it. When you drive by, you can see it. And she spent most of her life as a teacher at Shaw Junior High. And so one of the things about her legacy that we think it's really important for us as the library to protect and sort of make sure that people in DC know about is her legacy as a teacher and how she impacted kids in DC. So we are very pleased to be showing this artwork that we have. And again, this is just 2 of the 13 pieces. But we also, in this corner over here, are going to have a historical exhibition using photographs from our collection and from the American Archives of Art that really talk about her life in DC. And we're really pleased to be able to share her legacy with residents of DC. The other notable thing about Alma Thomas is that we've also been given a grant to establish the Alma Thomas Education Fund. And we will be using those funds to do interesting, engaging partnerships that really help with teens as a primary audience. One of the partnerships that we're working on right now is with the Phillips Collection. I'll sit in the background so you can see the paintings. So we will be working with the Phillips Collection and Imagination Stage to give teens in a couple of different classes, starting actually this spring. We'll be teaching them about Alma Thomas's life and legacy and her art. And then we will be asking the teens to create their own short plays about Alma Thomas. And hopefully by the fall, we will be able to debut those plays here in our auditorium, which I'll show you a little bit later. But we've got a lot of plans to use those Alma Thomas Education Fund to really ensure that district teens know about Alma Thomas and her life. So I'm gonna head up the stairs, and as you can tell, I'm a little out of breath. So Jonas, if there are any questions,
there was one that came in I thought was interesting. Is any of the furniture historically protected?
I'm sorry, I missed
Any
that.
of the furniture historically protected?
The furniture is historically protected, and of course we would have wanted to bring it back anyway, but as you can imagine, it's much more expensive to restore old furniture than it is to buy new furniture. We were required by historic preservation and our regulatory bodies to restore it. So that made justifying that expenditure a lot easier, let me tell you. And we're very pleased to be able to. I'm now on the 3rd floor of the library, which is really where the bulk of the adult collection is. And these are some, turn my camera around again. These are study rooms. And then this is going to be an area we're calling a living room, which is gonna have comfortable seating, like little separate areas so that you can co-work here, bring your book, have a small meeting, informal meeting, do all kinds of things here. And then that's the reading room west. And this is the grand reading room. And one of the pieces of feedback that we received from the community engagements that we did around this building is that the district residents really wanted a grand reading space, something that reminded them of New York Public Library. We never really had anything like that. And so we, in a very un-Miesian move, we broke out the ceiling between the 3rd and the 4th floors and created this well where we were able to put this work of art by a local, she's from Philadelphia and New York, artist, Afrofuturist artist named Zenobia Bailey. And she created this ceiling fabric, which is printed, and then these mobiles, which are made of steel for the most part. And then if you can see in the middle, there are a bunch of mandalas that she's a textile artist by her main practice is textile. And she hand crocheted or hand knitted these mandalas out of steel wire. And we'll be able to, when we go up to the next floor, which is where our special collections, the People's Archive is, we'll be able to see a little closer. But I wanted you to get the sense from this space how it impacts this grand reading room and really creates a sense of, it's meant to create a little bit of a sense of the night sky like you see in libraries in Europe, with our own little twist on it, this Afrofuturist twist, or I should say Zenobia's twist. The other thing I want to point out about this room, you'll see these chairs, these gray plastic chairs, they're lovely. I'm sure they're very comfortable, but these will actually be replaced, again, going back to the furniture, with original Miesian chairs that have gotten new bottoms that are much more sturdy than they used to be. So all of these chairs in this room, in the reading area, will be historic Miesian chairs. So as we're walking, and again, I'll flip the camera around so that I don't make you all dizzy. The other thing I sort of wanted to talk about that's harder to see right now, but that we hope to be, that in the coming months, you'll be able to see more of. We're working with a lot of local partners to bring art either, on a temporary basis. How temporary? Maybe a couple years. We're working with organizations like Glenstone, the museum out in Potomac, We're working with the Phillips Collection. We're working with Mission on the Arts and Humanities in DC to bring Art Bank works here. We're working with an organization called International Art and Artists that has a collection called the Hechinger Collection. For those of you who've lived in DC a while, Hechinger owned a bunch of hardware stores here and then around the country. And he had an art collection of pieces of art that talk about work or that reference work. There's tools and paintings of people making things. And sort of the ethos of that collection was for his workers to always see sort of the higher element of the work that they were doing. He felt like it was important to elevate work, physical work with your hands. So we are hopeful that we'll be able to bring some of those pieces to the labs downstairs, where of course people are making things all the time. And then I will go into, this is the fourth floor, I'm sorry, the fourth floor, which is where our People's Archive is. This is our historic collections. So some of you may be familiar with the Washingtonian collection. We also have historic maps. We have over 8,000 maps. We have the entire photographic archives of the Washington Star, which was the paper of record before the Post, and many, many other community archives, postcard collections, home records, all kinds of really fascinating things that now we have this beautiful space that we can bring and people can come and do their research. And one of the highlights of this room, I don't know if you can see up high, but this is a wooden table in the shape of the district. And so this will welcome people when they walk into the People's Archive. And then outside, I don't want to focus on that too much, but we also will have a permanent exhibit program that on one side we'll talk about MLK and his legacy and how he impacted local activists and how local activists impacted him. And then on the other side, it will be more specific historic exhibits about statehood, the Mayor for Life, Marion Barry, Go-Go, and Punk. And we'll also have some community archives that people can come and see objects that sort of everyday Washingtonians have donated and that mean something to them. So I wanted to show you this view of Zenobia's piece. There's really two things notable that I wanted to show you. One is if you can see that, you can see her handiwork a little bit closer and how she knitted these things out of steel wire. Just incredible work. The other thing that I wanted to point out in this part of the room is if you stand backward and look up at the ceiling, it's probably hard to see in the Zoom, but the photograph that is featured in the background, so all the different purples, that is actually a photograph of the March on Washington. And it is a historical photograph from our collection. It's probably easier to see here. You can see people's faces there and there. So we really wanted to make this piece really relevant to DC residents. It was really important to us. And by the way, the other thing that Jackie and Susan, we didn't even get to see yesterday is, or earlier this week, is these pieces that we have just brought back from Black Lives Matter. And they will also be part of our collection. Black Lives Matter Plaza, excuse me, that will become part of our collection. And they will be hung. Right now, they're just standing against the wall, but we're excited to hang them soon. They just arrived. So the other thing that I wanted to show you while we're on the fourth floor very quickly, and we're almost done, is our auditorium. And just to say that visual art is very important to the library, obviously, but performing arts is another thing that we really prioritize in terms of wanting to bring to district residents. And so we never really had a space at MLK that could do that. For those of you who were familiar with the building, the basement was pretty horrible and not super welcoming. And now I'm very pleased again, it's a new element, so this wood slat's very prominent throughout. It seats about 290 people, 50 social distance. So we're very much looking forward to when we're able to resume real programs here at MLK, to do piano performances. You can see we have a piano. To do theater, where there are some green rooms back in the back. So in author talks, lecture series. In fact, one of the things we're talking with Glenstone about is a lecture series featuring their arts, their artists and their curators, in addition to potentially some loaned works from Glenstone that we'll have here at MLK. And just really quickly, we can't tour the library without me showing you one of what we all think, we're biased, what the staff all thinks is one of the greatest features of the library, which is the new garden on the roof. And we're going through the sound walk here and out through these front doors. We also, by the way, have an event space here that is rentable to the public. So we look forward to welcoming you. The one arena, of course. So we're approaching right now the 9th and G corner, lots of seating, and this big overhang that really protects you from the rain and snow, maybe this weekend. Our staff have really enjoyed being up here, and we are very excited. This is going to be open to the public, just for people to come and read or enjoy other people's company or whatever they have the opportunity to do. So that concludes the tour, and it's sunny today. I'm so excited. It's the first time in a while. So that concludes our tour. I think I saw some questions coming in. I'll have to go back through the other side. So I'm going to turn my camera around and try to get back inside and can answer questions in the meantime.
Yeah, there is one that I think you sort of answered because it came in before, but does the big research room, does that replace the old Washingtonian room? Research room? That was one of the questions?
So yes. So Washingtoniana was one of several historical archive, and Washingtonian collection will live in that collection, or in that room, I'm sorry. And in addition to the space that I showed you, there's similar to the reading rooms where there's two, where there's a left and a right, or excuse me, an east and a west is how we refer to it. But there are two historic archives spaces. One is staff only, and then the other is where you can come and have your research appointments with our staff.
Great. Are you trapped on the roof? Is that the issue?
I am trapped on the roof, but I will wrap up this call and I will, I'll call a colleague to come get me.
Well, I'll ask these couple questions and then I can pass off to Susan.
Never
and then
happened to me before.
Yes, you could rejoin after Susan's piece. You can rejoin after getting off the roof. Do you have any collaborations with the Smithsonian planned?
We do. We actually have. We are currently working with several of the Smithsonians. We have done some stuff with American art. We, of course, the archives of American art have been enormously helpful in the work that we've done about Emma Thomas. Yeah, we have other partnerships with other Smithsonians that may not even be about art. We do story times in collaboration with other Smithsonians. So yes, some of them are not necessarily around the art and archives, but art and exhibits, but we do partner with many of the Smithsonians.
I think I'll pass off to Susan now, and then you can get off the roof, and then I'll see if any more questions come in, if that's okay.
Sounds
great. It's pretty cold up there.
It actually is quite nice, but thanks.
Okay, Susan.
Somebody get her off the roof. Well, she's stuck on the roof. She's doing a tour for the village, so she's stuck on the roof. So if you can get someone up there to help. Okay, thanks. I just called the library. This is what you get to do when you're in my little position here, to make sure that Linnea doesn't freeze to death on the roof on top of hyperventilating. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Susan Haight, and I am have been working with libraries for 20 years, or since I moved to the district. And I used to work with the Federation of Friends, and now I'm working with the DC Library Foundation. One of the things I wanted you all to know, and is no surprise, is that the library budget will be cut severely for this year when they revisit it, and for next year and the years coming forward. So as one of the things that happens is that the art program, which is something that the library has worked really hard on and is funded basically by the foundation, will be, well, I don't say will come to a halt, but it'll be severely diminished. And so what I wanted to say is that if you're interested in making sure that we have public art that is for the masses, and art that is from our local artists, I wanted to put up the Library Foundation's information so that you can donate. You could donate in any amount, but we really appreciate that. I have been working with Linnea. Oh, I feel like we've known each other forever, but to put these things together with a lot of help from the community. And it would be very helpful to have any contribution if you're interested in sustaining the art program. And thank you, Linnea, and thank you, Jonas, for doing this, and Jackie, of course.
Yeah, thank you, Susan.
You got inside, yay.
I got inside, I'm all warm. Although it's time for a brisk walk if any of you are interested, because it's a little windy, but it is kind of beautiful outside. Found the right door.
Well, that's good, because I have a couple more questions for you. One was on, do you have any film showings planned?
Yes, actually, I'm glad that you mentioned that. I have to plug again our work about Alma Thomas, because there is, as you all may know, there's a short documentary that's being filmed about Alma Thomas's life. And we are working with them actually to do some filming here at MLK, but also hoping to have the DC debut of that film here at the library in the fall. But that's just one example. I think, you know, we show movies at all of our branches, and I think we will definitely do that here. I think we're hopeful that some of the film festivals might want to relocate here. But we're very interested in using the auditorium, and by the way, other spaces in the library to do screenings. We have great AV in the auditorium as well as throughout the building. So there's a lot of opportunity to do stuff like that. Thanks for bringing that up.
How was accessibility taken into account? I know you tried to do the elevators the other day and it didn't work very well, but how was that taken into account as part of the renovations?
That's a really good question. I mean, obviously these monumental staircases are a pretty important design element, but as you all may remember, in the old library, and actually I'll show you the, let me turn my camera around. Now you can see the stairwell from this way.
Wow.
But as you all may remember, elevators were very limited at MLK. They were very small. They were located in the back of the building. So it was not very easy if you couldn't walk upstairs. Not that you wanted to use the stairs at the old MLK, but it was pretty difficult to use them. But here, as you can see, in each stairwell, including, well, you won't be able to see the other ones, but the front and the back, there are, I believe, 11 elevators total throughout the space. And we also have, I didn't show you because it doesn't have any art in it and it's not particularly relevant to this conversation, but we did relocate our Center for Accessibility here to MLK, which provides a variety of services for a lot of patrons who identify as having disabilities. And we're very pleased that that space has been expanded. It is going to be enormously more functional and more beautiful for patrons. So we're really excited about that. But yes, accessibility was a very important feature. We thought very carefully about it throughout the space, and our new director of the Center for Accessibility has been really key in those efforts to ensure that the space is welcoming for everybody.
Great. Someone asked about the slides, and I will actually send out the slides as part of the usual post-event email.
I think I saw that question, and I think that person may have been talking about the slide here at the library.
Oh, I didn't know there was a slide in the library.
Necessarily art, although it is certainly about enjoyment. One of the things that Rich said when we were in the design process for this building is he really wanted this space to bring delight to people of all ages. And, you know, I would say that there's lots of elements in the library that do this. I'm walking all the way down the stairs right now, but one of the most important elements for that, for kids anyway, is that we do have a slide that is that is integrated into the architectural design of the space. And we're almost there, I promise. So I will show you that as we get downstairs. One more stairwell. I'm gonna get my exercise when we start working here full time. Here we camera around so you can see. This is the slide, that's the bottom. Very safe with you can't see the top necessarily, but that's the slide.
Oh.
Yes, and I personally have not done the slide, but I cannot speak for many of my colleagues who I think, even though the slide is for children, I think many of them have taken advantage of it. Lots of people have brought their kids.
I'm going to interject here. You and I both seen reporters slide down that. They were taking, taking a preview of it. All of a sudden we couldn't find them and we hear the screaming or sliding down the slide. Very fun.
Yeah, exactly. And Michaela Lafrec, who is a reporter for WAMU, she has a pretty active Twitter feed, and she actually put a video of herself going down the slide on her Twitter feed. So if you're really interested, you can search her Twitter feed and find that. Back when she did a great preview actually of the art in the building, and it was a part of that story, I believe.
Great, that's all the questions that came through the chat. Does anyone would anyone else like to ask any questions before we wrap up? I definitely want to say thank you. I thought, especially that last bit with the slide, I just assumed it was missing an S, but good to know there's a slide in the building. I certainly was very fascinated by the whole thing.
Well, I'm so glad to hear it. And
thank you very much.
Yeah, we really look forward to welcoming you in person, where that will be, but safely be able to be done soon.
Great. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Nobody else has any questions? Yep.
Thanks so much to all of you all for welcoming us. Thank you, Susan, for setting